Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Zelly, for a very good talk. Just before me, that's great. And I want to do this intro because the spirit of what Zelly was talking about by doing a sort of relaxation technique for me, which could be another talk altogether to the talk I want to do now. But I'm gonna, if someone can time it, well, actually I can time it myself, how long I can do a certain sound for a certain amount of time, which is a way I can just begin my talk. So just bear with me a minute. It's a kind of Tibetan throat chant. Okay. Everybody ready? How long was that? Anyone?
Quite a long time.
25 seconds? Okay, I'll try it later. To get on with the talk. It's got nothing to do with Tibetan throat chanting, I'm afraid. Ready? Oh, fine. Okay, so there was a bit of a technical hitch earlier on, and I had to sort of, my technology didn't match the technology of Tim, and I had to sort of work it out, and some of these slides are completely new to me, that is what but luckily I can work with it and make it even better than it was before. So all the slides are completely new to me, and we just fixed it, the technical.
Is that an economic doorknob?
No. Okay, here we are. This is a talk about meteorites and our solar system and all the fantastic things in it. It's our family, really. We have Earth and we have the planets around us, all going around the sun, and we're part of a family, really. This is the main asteroid belt, it's written there, and this is where meteorites are found. They basically bob around between Jupiter and Mars in the asteroid belt. 99% of meteorites come from there. That could be a question for someone at the end to ask about the 1%. No, next slide, right? Okay, so can anyone translate that? So this is found in Alsace, this meteorite. It's been, I think it landed about 1450s or something around that time. And they were so amazed by it that they hung it up in the local church in Alsace, behind the pulpit area, because it was seen as a godly kind of action or something like that. It's actually funny, because they used to think that meteorites were. Have you heard of a meteoritic rise to fame? They used to think that meteorites were thrown by gods from one place of the Earth to another place on the Earth. That's why you have the term meteoritic rise. It's a misnomer. When they found out sometime in the 1850s that actually they came from outer space. This actually doesn't. This meteorite's a bit odd because everyone's chipped bits off it over the centuries and pocketed it and run off with it. That's why it looks a bit odd. But to me, because I study meteorites. Next slide. So I don't know what's coming up. Each slide, I have no idea what they are. So I'm going to. This looks a bit like me. It's in central Morocco, I think, in that picture. There's an amazing book you can get in the library called The Book of Meteorites, and I think there's only about 6 copies. And one of them's in the Natural History Museum. And I became a member of the library, and I went down there and photocopied the pages in this enormous book that you can't get hold of anywhere. And it tells you where all the meteorite strikes are around the world. Someone's documented them, and this is one area where they were. So I found a couple of tangerines there. A rock on morning looks promising, is that when I took it back to the Natural History Museum, they said it wasn't anything. So best way to find meteorites I found is, as you can see in the scene here, deep into the Sahara Desert. I should tell you that meteorites are found in desert areas. I used to think that they were attracted to the sunnier parts of the globe, and then someone realised that actually it's because there's very little vegetation there, so you can see them in the sand. So the best way, or one of the best ways to find meteorites I found wasn't to just go looking for them like I did in that last picture. It was to get nomads, to find nomads to go and look for them in Morocco, southern Morocco, or northern Algeria. And so there's areas here where these people will find them. So here I am. The guy's got a magnet pen there, and I'm showing him that they can be attracted to a magnet. And I gave him a book so that I come back to him the following year so we can find some meteorites for him. So that seemed to be one of the best ways to find them. They drive around on mopeds rather than camels. So here's me. I did a film, I was on a film on Channel 4 about looking for meteorites, and these are clips from the film that I found tonight. Put them on this stick. This is Alan Carrion, he's the biggest meteorite dealer in Paris. And there he is looking very closely at something to see whether it really is a meteorite. They're also, if it's not a meteorite, in the meteorite trade they call it a meteoron. That's what he's looking for. Serious man. He's got a stick safe underneath the shop in the de la Cité in Paris, and underneath there he's got a big vault that he took me through and showed me some amazing slabs of meteorite. They cut them in, when the meteorites come, they slice them up like bread, they do in a bread shop, so you can see through them. Some of the meteorites are semi-transparent, which is quite well, and they're called pallasites. I don't have any pictures of that, so you'll just have to imagine it. Right, okay, this is very slide-led, this talk, by the way, so when it comes up, I'll just kind of do it. This looks rather snowy, isn't it, this scene? So we'll be looking at really deserts. Deserts are the places to find meteorites, because you've got sand, and then you've got, which sometimes has lots of rocks, which is quite difficult to spot the rocks from the meteorite. Snow and ice, this is actually atop of a glacier, and these are very good for finding meteorites, because the glaciers, they sort of push along very slowly, and then there's something called blue ice when they come up over a ridge and they deposit meteorites. So the Japanese were quite big on meteorite hunting. And I think they got about 600 meteorites this way, I think, and they actually built robots to go out looking for them. There was a talk of life on another planet, and they found a meteorite some 15 years ago. I think that was found, there was some talk that there was a worm inside this meteorite, but I don't think it should really be anything. So anyway, here they are looking for meteorites. There you go. And yeah, they got quite sick of it, so the robots did a better job, I think. Cold. Let me see, what's that? So this is a brilliant meteorite. It's a kind of meteorite we all think of, isn't it, when we think of a meteorite? We think of something like a Swiss cheese that's floated through space. And they do float through space. It's quite a lonely thing to be a meteorite. They're sort of like, if you think of a building site, you get lots of rubble left over, don't you, at the end of a building site. And that's kind of when the solar system was formed. They say 4.6 billion years ago. It was formed, and there was the bits left over that didn't coagulate into planets. The lonely little bits of rock that didn't make it into a planetary body, which was carry on floating through space and end up in the asteroid belt. And there they are, up there. Sometimes we run into them, or they run into us, because we're actually currently moving at around 15,000 miles an hour at the moment around the sun, which we all forget, don't we? That we're actually not static, we're actually moving. We sometimes run into meteorites, so we can crash into them just as much as they can crash into us. So a bit like going down a motorway. Okay, so this is sometime after 1900. This was found in Oregon. This very large meteorite, and if anyone's been to New York Natural History Museum, you'll see it in the lobby there. And it's a brilliant one. I think it's actually the aging in it is actually from Earth. It's terrestrial aging. That's why it's got those holes in it. I don't know much more about that meteorite actually, because it's, like I said, it's a new slide. So, but I love those guys in it. And it's quite a feat to get it to New York, I think. I think it's the 5th biggest meteorite found in the world. I made jewellery for them because I was trained as a designer. So I collect things as a person. I sort of collected lots of different things in my time. And I was trained as a designer, and I started making rings out of meteorite. And when I went back to the Natural History Museum, I saw Dr. Monica Grady, who's like a world expert on these things. She was rather disappointed about me making them into rings. She thought it was, sort of downgraded meteorites in some way. But she did tell me that it's perfectly safe to wear them. So it's like, because you see I'm wearing them on my hands right now. But luckily, I think, apart from the twitch I have, I don't. So there they are, in a kind of spacey kind of look. And they've got silver, the grey part is a meteorite. So about a certain amount of meteorites that land are made of nickel iron purely, so they're a very good source of iron. This particular meteorite landed in, this is cut from a meteorite that landed in Africa, in Namibia, and the locals, because it landed in prehistoric times, they reckon, the locals would make the meteorite into plates and knives and things like that. So it's a great source of iron ore. Hence the reason they're trying to mine meteorites at the moment in space. They're thinking about mining asteroids, because there's a lot of iron out in space, nickel iron. This is a screenshot, so it doesn't actually move. You can see this is a recent one. That landed in South Africa, that was filmed by someone. And you can see that's what's called a fireball. If everyone's got a fireball, it's a moving meteorite. A shooting star is also a meteorite, but it's more like a meteoroid. It's really tiny. It's smaller than the size of a baked bean. A shooting star, probably like the size of a pinhead or something. And but they burn up a lot of energy, so you can still see them 60 miles up. So you probably want to know, because I think it was entitled, wasn't it? I'm going to do a general talk about meteorites, but actually it's also how to go meteorite hunting or whatever. So this is where you might start. Because there's not many deserts in England. But what you need is some flat bits of terrain that doesn't have any other rocks on it, or grass or mud. So there you go. So next time you're out, just look really carefully for meteorites. Or if there's a hole in someone's roof of someone's car or boot, that could be a clue. It could be a very valuable find as well, because we call it the Tesco meteorite, that's what we call it from now on. And you could be the holder of that meteorite, so look out for anything like that. I don't know what the next slide is. Oh, yeah. That's a collection I used to have some time ago. I don't do that anymore. I'm not sure. Does anyone know who this is? So anyway, so I suppose it's something to. I was looking for a slide to show it's not kryptonite, you see, because people get meteorite and kryptonite mixed up. Apparently, it's not as bad for you as kryptonite is. So if you have a meteorite, you could carry it around inside your gloves like this, if you wanted to, safely. And actually, in my bag, I've got one last thing to say. This is how you do a meteorite hunting. Anyone know what that is? Answer. There you go. Thank you very much.
Was it?
It's a magnet.
Oh, right, thank you.
So meteorites have iron in them and nickel, so they attract. You see if I'll just do a little demonstration. See? So the solar system is made of iron and nickel. But also in my rings they've also got iridium and something called Schreibersite, which is only a cosmic material not found on Earth. And the rings and the meteorite I have here, which you can come and have a look at if you want to later, it's a steel, nickel iron meteorite. It is, it's the oldest thing on Earth now. I mean, if I showed you this, it's a lot older than anything on Earth. And it had a very lonely time floating around the solar system before it hit Earth. There's a you've got to think of that too. Okay. Right, I've been Andy Spector talking about how to find meteorites. Thank you very much.
What a wonderful Bavard, 3 wonderful Bavards, a wonderful Bavard by Andy. Does anybody have any questions for Andy? Yes. So anyway, let me give the mic.
Have you found lots of meteorites?
No, I went looking for them. Harder than I thought. So the answer is no.
I'm still not sure that you told me how to find them.
It's a magnet, it's with a magnet. Well, yeah, if you go out, I mean, you can adapt the magnet and put it on the end of a walking stick. When you're out. Yeah.
Then I'm walking along looking at the various rocks there are. How would I know, apart from the magnet, that was a meteorite?
Well, you go down, you go out to the desert and you'd find nomads, and then you go. Yes, they're really expert at it. Nomads on mopeds.
Any more questions for Andy in terms of finding meteorites? Oh, sorry, yeah, question.
I just love those rings. Can I have a ring? I want a cosmic ring.
I'll see you later.
Another question.
So, I'm a bit unconvinced that they're safe. The Earth is hot because of all the uranium and stuff inside it. So why aren't meteorites radioactive?
It's true that inside the planetary bodies like Earth, it would have a nickel iron core, and meteorites are broken up planetary bodies. That's why there's 3 types of meteorites: the stony ones, the nickel iron stony ones, and the nickel iron ones, which is what this is. But I mean, Monica Grady at the Natural History Museum assured me they're perfectly safe. She's a world expert.
We'll go with Monica. Yeah. Question? Yes. I'll give you the mic to people.
When I was a kid, I have recollection of finding these lumps of iron on the beach in Eastbourne. And we used to call them meteorites, but I wasn't convinced they were meteorites. Is it possible that they were meteorites?
Or meteorons.
Or meteorites?
Well, it's funny, I was on a kind of website, American website, Meteorite Exchange, and I used to get so many emails from people all over the world with folks showing photographs and trying to... It was quite funny how many people all over the world were convinced they had meteorite. There's sometimes near iron smelting works, some of the debris left over looked like meteorites. And sometimes riverbeds roll the rocks so they become smooth on the outside. That can look. So there's a lot of dud ones around. Usually they are, 95% of the time they're not.
Is that because they've grown up on
You can always pretend. I mean, I always pretend. Just say it.
Well, that's what we did as kids.
You're a meteor hunter. Meteorite hunter.
Who said that? Oh, no. know, I heard about, actually, I made the rings because I heard some rock star, I read about some rock star about 30 years ago, so had a meteorite ring, and I thought that's the most amazing, American, and I thought about that. And I went to a show in Paris, and they had a meteorite show. You could buy a meteorite at the end of it, the show. So I think it was the fact you could actually, I didn't know you could buy a meteorite, you know, it was amazing. So I didn't know, I suppose I like looking for things, I like collecting things. I've collected all sorts of bottle tops and beer mats and all sorts of things. And I move on from them, you know, I keep moving on to other collections. So I haven't always looked at meteorites, but I think it's from about the age of 20 I started getting into it, yeah.
Another question.
What's the difference between a meteorite and an asteroid?
Well, asteroids are a lot bigger. They're named, asteroids are named, so I think there's about 100,000 asteroids around the Earth which could threaten Earth. They're called near-Earth asteroids, NEAs. So there's about 100,000 of them which are named, which could collide with Earth. And if they're smaller than a certain size, but I'm afraid I don't know the actual size, then they're just meteorites. If they're really tiny, smaller than a pinhead on a map, smaller than a pinhead, they're then meteoroids. Below meteoroids, there's meteoritic dust, which lands on Earth all the time, and it's making actually the Earth's growing slightly larger every year, like 50 to 100,000 tons, because apparently there's dust floating down on us.
Any final questions for Andy before? One final question here, and then
I seem to remember that you planted a question at the beginning, which is where did the other 1% come from?
That's a very good question. So the meteorite, the asteroid belt is the belt between Jupiter and Mars, and that's where 99% of them come from. And they collide with each other, and some of them, sometimes they go the wrong way, or whatever, someone's driving badly, and one will get knocked out of that belt by some force, and then they'll carry on what they call an eccentric orbit, and that eccentric orbit can then hit Mars or the Moon, and then it hits it with such force that it ejects rock from the Moon or from Mars, which is so they're pieces of the Moon or Mars which then get pushed back into the solar system for another 200 million years or something. And then they'll hit Earth. So the people that are really minted are the people that have got little pieces of Mars or little pieces. So there's about 13 pieces of Mars, and there's 15 now, I think, bits of the Moon, which are called lunar meteorites and Martian meteorites. They're very, very rare, so they're the sort of 1%.
Thank you very much. Well, can we please thank Andy for a